The grand halls of the Aurelian Palace shimmered with golden light, reflecting off massive crystal pillars that stretched toward the sky. Thousands of dignitaries from across the galaxy had gathered for one purpose: to witness the selection of Princess Spira's future consort. The Aurelian Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations in the known universe, had long followed tradition. Their rulers married only the strongest, the smartest, or the most influential. And now, Syra had reached the age where she must choose. Her suitors stood before her, each one representing the might of their species. A towering Zarkam warlord, his skin like molten rock, flexed his arms, proud of his brute strength. Beside him, a Seraphian scholar, his body made of flowing energy, radiated intelligence beyond mortal comprehension. A six-eyed, multi-limbed ambassador from the Zephyrians observed his competitors with cold calculation. Each one believed they were worthy of the princess. But Syra remained unimpressed. Seated on her golden throne, she listened to their boasts, their achievements, and their carefully planned speeches. She had heard it all before. Strength, power, knowledge. None of it mattered if the heart was empty. She wanted something different. Someone different. That's when she saw the name on the suitor list. Ethan Voss. Her glowing blue eyes narrowed. A human. How had a primitive species from a backwater planet like Earth made it into the suitor ballot? She scanned the records. Ethan Voss was no diplomat, no noble, no warlord. He was a soldier, a simple captain in Earth's expeditionary force, stationed at the edge of Aurelian space, yet his name had been placed among the suitors. Curious, she read further. Months ago, his small squad had been ambushed by the Dominion Swarm, a terrifying race of insectoid creatures that had devoured countless worlds. An Aurelian ambassador's vessel had been caught in the crossfire, its defenses failing. Instead of retreating to save himself, Ethan had launched a daring rescue mission, extracting the ambassador and sacrificing his own ship to ensure their escape. Against impossible odds, he had survived. The ambassador, grateful beyond words, had petitioned for Ethan to be honored. But somehow, through a bureaucratic misunderstanding, or perhaps fate, his name had ended up on the royal suitor list. Zyra's lips curved into a smile. A warrior with no royal blood. A man who fought not for power, but for his people. A soldier who had saved one of her own, not for gain, but because it was the right thing to do. Her court would be outraged if she even considered him. But she didn't care. Rising from her throne, she turned to her royal advisor. "Summon the human," she commanded. "I wish to meet Captain Ethan Voss." And so, the fate of a soldier who had never sought power was about to change forever. Ethan and Kavar crashed onto the rocky ground with a brutal impact. Dust and debris exploded around them as they tumbled, their bodies slamming against jagged stones. The Varthak roared above them, its massive form looming in the swirling dust. Ethan groaned, pushing himself up. His ribs ached, but he had no time to rest. Kavar, equally bruised, rolled onto his feet, his golden armor scratched and dented. His eyes burned with rage. "You fool," Kavar snarled. "You'll die for this." Ethan smirked, wiping the blood from his lip. "You're welcome, by the way." Before Kavar could respond, the Varthak attacked. It leaped down, claws slamming into the rocky terrain between them, shaking the ground. Ethan moved first. He dived to the left, grabbing a broken energy spear from the ground. Kavar lunged in the opposite direction, drawing his blade. The Varthak charged at Kavar first, seeing him as the bigger threat. The alien noble dodged the first swipe, but was too slow for the second. The beast's massive tail slammed into him, sending him crashing against the rocks. Ethan didn't waste a second. This was his chance. With a sharp inhale, he sprinted forward and leaped onto the Varthak's back. The beast roared, trying to shake him off, but Ethan gripped tightly. Then he drove the spear into the creature's neck. The Varthak screamed, thrashing wildly. Ethan held on, pushing the weapon deeper, feeling its armored hide crack beneath the force. Blood. thick and dark, poured from the wound. But it wasn't enough. The beast reared up, sending Ethan flying. He hit the ground hard, gasping as pain shot through his body. The Varthak turned, red eyes glowing with fury. It charged. At that moment, Kavar, bruised, battered, and barely standing, moved. With a defiant roar, he threw his blade. The weapon spun through the air like a comet and pierced the Varthak's exposed wound. The beast staggered. Ethan saw his opening. Ignoring the pain, he grabbed a broken piece of rock and lunged forward, using every ounce of strength left in his body. With a final cry, he slammed the jagged stone into the spear's wound. The Varthak let out a final deafening scream. Then it collapsed. Silence filled the battlefield. Ethan lay on his back, breathing hard. The dust settled around them, and he turned his head to see Kavar still standing. Barely. Their eyes met. For the first time, Kavar did not look at Ethan with hatred. Maybe it was respect. Maybe it was exhaustion. Neither spoke. The sound of royal ships approaching broke the silence. The trial was over. Ethan had survived. And Princess Xyra, watching from above, knew the human had just changed the empire forever. The grand arena of Aurelia was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. A vast, circular coliseum, its walls shimmered with energy fields, projecting the cheers of thousands of spectators. The entire city had come to witness the trials, tests designed to determine which suitor was worthy of Princess Xyra. Ethan stood among the other contenders, each one an elite warrior, scholar, or ruler from across the galaxy. Massive reptilian warlords flexed their armored scales, psychic beings hovered inches above the ground, and genetically enhanced nobles observed their surroundings with cold precision. He was the only human. A deep voice boomed across the arena. First trial. The Maze of Peril. A section of the floor shifted, revealing a massive labyrinth. Its walls pulsed with energy, shifting and changing unpredictably. Somewhere inside, an exit existed, but only the worthy would find it. Ethan took a deep breath. A maze. That's it. Then he saw the first competitor step inside. The moment the alien noble entered, a section of the floor collapsed beneath him. The crowd gasped as he barely managed to grab onto the edge, struggling to climb back up before the floor sealed itself again. Another competitor moved forward, but the wall suddenly closed in, nearly crushing him. Ethan exhaled. Of course, it's not just a maze. It's a death trap. One by one, the suitors entered, using their natural abilities to navigate the maze. The reptilian warlord used his strength to smash through obstacles. The psychic noble sensed shifts in the maze before they happened. Others used technology, brute force, or agility to move forward. Then it was Ethan's turn. He stepped inside cautiously, his soldier's instincts on full alert. Almost immediately, the walls began shifting. He heard the hum of energy, a trap activating. Without thinking, he dived forward. The spot where he had stood a second ago erupted in an explosion of plasma. Too close. Ethan moved quickly but carefully, analyzing the pattern of shifting walls. He had no superhuman strength, no psychic abilities, no advanced technology. But he had something else. His mind. He focused on patterns. The way the walls moved, the slight hum before a trap activated, the brief delay before the floor collapsed. It's a puzzle, not just a test of strength. Using quick reflexes and precise timing, he dodged traps, avoided pitfalls, and moved forward. Ahead, he saw competitors trapped or struggling. Some had given up, realizing they couldn't pass. Ethan wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the strongest. But he was the smartest in that moment. With a final sprint, he leaped through the exit just as the maze shifted again, sealing off behind him. Silence. Then, cheers. The spectators were stunned. A mere human had passed the first trial, without powers, without weapons, just strategy. Princess Zyra watched from above, smiling. Ethan Voss was proving himself in ways no one had expected, and the galaxy was beginning to take notice. Ethan knew he was walking on dangerous ground. The moment he refused to step down, the room grew cold. He could feel the weight of every noble's gaze, some filled with contempt, others with silent fury. Chancellor Vorix remained still, his glowing eyes studying Ethan like a predator sizing up prey. "You are bold, Captain Voss," Vorix finally said, "but boldness alone will not protect you." Ethan shrugged. "I've managed so far." Kavar stepped forward, his four fists clenching. "Enough of this." His voice boomed through the chamber. "The trials are a joke if we allow this human to continue. He is unworthy." Ethan smirked. "Unworthy? I beat you in the last trial." Kavar's nostrils flared, his rage barely contained. "You dare?" Vorix raised a hand, silencing him. Then he turned to Ethan. "There is one final trial before the selection," Vorix said slowly. "A test that is reserved only for the most elite contenders." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "And let me guess, it's not exactly fair." Vorix smiled thinly. "It is a hunt." A murmur spread through the chamber. Even Kavar seemed surprised. Ethan folded his arms. "Hunt. Sounds fun. Who are we hunting?" Vorix's smile widened. "Not who. What?" He gestured to a floating screen. A holographic image appeared, an enormous armored beast with crimson eyes and dagger-like claws. "The Varathak, a creature of legend," Vorix explained. "It resides in the Shadowlands, a wasteland beyond the city. Only the strongest warriors have ever faced it. Very few have survived." Ethan's jaw tightened. "They're trying to kill me." Vorix leaned forward. "The rules are simple. The one who slays the beast will prove their dominance. If you refuse to participate, you will be disqualified." Kavar grinned. Finally, a chance to eliminate the human for good. Ethan exhaled. He didn't like this. He had fought powerful enemies before, but this wasn't just a trial. It was an execution disguised as a test. Still, backing down wasn't an option. "Fine," Ethan said. "I'll play your little game." Kavar chuckled darkly. "Then I hope you've made peace with death, human." Ethan smirked. "You first." The nobles whispered among themselves as Ethan turned and walked out of the chamber. Princess Zyra, watching from the shadows, clenched her fists. She knew this was a trap, but Ethan wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting to change everything. Ethan stood at the edge of the grand arena, catching his breath. The first trial had been brutal, but he had passed. The cheers from the crowd were unexpected. Humans weren't supposed to win against superior alien races, and yet he had done it. But not everyone was impressed. From the royal viewing platform, Lord Kavar, a powerful noble and one of the leading suitors, watched Ethan with narrowed eyes. Kavar was tall, his emerald skin covered in shimmering scales, his four arms crossed over his armored chest. He had always believed humans were weak, an inferior species not worth the attention of the Aurelian Empire. And now, this Earth soldier was stealing the spotlight. "This human must be dealt with," Kavar murmured to his advisor. "He is an insult to the trials." The advisor hesitated. "But my lord, the princess has taken an interest in him." Kavar's lip curled in disgust. That was the real problem. Princess Zyra had ignored the strongest warriors and the most intelligent minds of the galaxy, yet she had shown clear admiration for a mere soldier. Kavar would not allow it. Meanwhile, Ethan walked through the palace corridors, guided by a pair of royal guards. He was supposed to return to his quarters, but something felt off. He could feel the stares, the tension in the air. He wasn't stupid. Winning the first trial had made him a target. As he turned a corner, a deep voice stopped him. "You got lucky, human." Ethan looked up to see Kavar standing in his path, his golden ceremonial armor reflecting the palace lights. Behind him, two of his allies, both powerful warriors, watched with amused expressions. Ethan smirked. Luck. I thought the Aurelian Empire valued strategy. Kevar's expression darkened. Your games will not last. You do not belong here. He stepped closer, towering over Ethan. Leave now, and I will allow you to walk away with your dignity. Ethan tilted his head. And if I don't? Kevar's four hands clenched into fists. Then your next trial will be your last. The threat was clear. But Ethan had faced war, seen men die in battle, and survived horrors that would break most soldiers. He wasn't afraid of a spoiled noble. Instead of backing down, he met Kevar's glare with a calm expression. We'll see about that. For a brief moment, there was silence. Then Kevar let out a low growl and stepped back. Enjoy your victory while it lasts, human. He turned and disappeared into the shadows of the palace halls. Ethan exhaled, shaking his head. He knew the next trial would be even harder, not just because of the challenge, but because now someone was actively working against him. Far above, hidden from sight, Princess Styra watched the exchange with narrowed eyes. She had expected the suitors to challenge Ethan, but she had not expected them to fear him. The Aurelian capital was unlike anything Ethan Voss had ever seen. Towering golden spires stretched into the sky, their surfaces shimmering as if woven from living light. The streets below were lined with floating gardens, their flowers glowing softly in 1,000 colors. The sky itself pulsed with energy, a constant reminder of the advanced technology that powered this magnificent world. Ethan stood on the balcony of the royal transport, watching the breathtaking view as the ship descended toward the palace. Around him, Aurelian nobles and officials observed him with curiosity, and some with clear disapproval. He could hear their whispers. A human. How absurd. Surely the princess is only being polite. What does she see in this? Primitive. Ethan clenched his jaw, but said nothing. He had faced worse. The ship landed smoothly in the palace courtyard, where an enormous crowd had gathered. The moment Ethan stepped onto the polished marble floor, the murmurs grew louder. And then the crowd parted. Princess Styra entered. She was radiant, her long silver hair flowing like liquid starlight. Her golden robes shimmered with intricate designs of her royal lineage. But what struck Ethan the most were her eyes. Deep blue, glowing with intelligence and something else. Curiosity. She studied him for a moment, then smiled. Captain Ethan Voss, she said, her voice smooth yet commanding. Welcome to Aurelia. Ethan gave a polite nod. Your Highness. Zyra gestured for him to walk beside her. As they moved through the palace halls, her suitors watched with narrowed eyes. Some were warriors, their massive forms radiating power. Others were scholars or high-ranking officials, their expressions filled with arrogance. To them, Ethan was nothing more than an outsider. Finally, they reached the grand hall where the trials would take place. Zyra turned to him. You must be wondering why you are here. Ethan smirked. The thought crossed my mind. She chuckled. I have met warriors stronger than you, minds more advanced, leaders more powerful, but none of them interest me. They are arrogant, entitled. You, Captain Voss, are different. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Because I'm human. Because you fought to protect my people. Tyra corrected. Not for reward. Not for recognition. You fought simply because it was the right thing to do. That is rare. Ethan looked at her, seeing no deception in her eyes. He sighed. So what happens now? Zyra smiled. Now you prove to the Empire why a human belongs here. She turned to the gathered nobles. Let the trials begin. Ethan exhaled slowly. He had survived war zones and impossible battles, but something told him this would be the hardest fight of his life. And for some reason, he was looking forward to it. Captain Ethan Voss sat inside a dimly lit command center aboard the UES Valor, a human warship stationed near the borders of Aurelian space. His uniform was worn, his boots scuffed from countless battles, and his face carried the exhaustion of a soldier who had seen too much war. He had been fighting the Dominion swarm for months, leading his squad through impossible battles. And now, for some reason, the most powerful alien empire in the galaxy had sent a royal envoy to meet him. "What the hell does the Aurelian Empire want with me?" he muttered, staring at the official message glowing on his tablet. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Harris, whistled. "Looks like they're inviting you to their homeworld. Says it's an honor of the highest degree." Ethan frowned. The Aurelians were advanced, powerful, and centuries ahead of humanity in technology. They rarely paid attention to Earth, treating humans like a minor species. So why were they suddenly interested in him? Before he could think further, the ship's eye chimed in. "Captain Voss, the Aurelian envoy has arrived. They request an immediate meeting." Ethan took a deep breath. "Well, let's see what this is about." The Aurelian envoy was unlike anything he had ever seen. The tall, elegant figure wore shimmering silver robes, his skin glowing faintly with an inner light. His voice was smooth and commanding. "Captain Ethan Voss, by royal decree, you are summoned to the Aurelian homeworld," the envoy announced. Ethan crossed his arms. "Why?" "The princess has chosen you as a suitor." Silence. Ethan blinked, then blinked again. Lieutenant Harris coughed to hide a laugh. Did he just say suitor?" Ethan ran a hand over his face. "There's gotta be some mistake." "No mistake," the envoy said firmly. "Your bravery in saving our ambassador has placed you on the royal ballot. Princess Zyra herself has chosen to meet you. You will accompany us to the Aurelian capital." Ethan let out a tired chuckle. He had faced death, battled monstrous creatures, and survived impossible odds. But nothing had prepared him for this. "This is crazy," he muttered. "I'm a soldier, not a prince." "You are human," the envoy said, as if that explained everything. "And that, Captain Voss, makes you different from the others." Ethan looked around at his crew. They all wore expressions ranging from shock to barely contained laughter. Harris grinned. "Well, sir, you always said you wanted a break from war. Guess you're going to a royal ball instead." Ethan sighed. This was the last thing he needed, but something in the envoy's eyes told him this wasn't a request. "Fine," he said. "I'll go." As the Aurelian ship prepared for departure, Ethan had no idea that this single decision would change the fate of the galaxy. Ethan walked out of the arena, sweat dripping down his forehead. The cheers from the crowd still echoed in his ears, but he knew one thing for certain: he had made enemies today. Lord Kavar had been humiliated. Losing to a human was something he would never forget or forgive. Ethan expected trouble, and trouble came fast. As he made his way through the palace corridors, two royal guards suddenly stepped in front of him. Their golden armor gleamed under the soft palace lights. "The High Council requests your presence," one of them said. Ethan sighed. No rest for the wicked, huh? The guards didn't react. They simply led him through the palace, deeper than he had ever been before. Finally, they arrived at a massive chamber. The doors slid open with a soft hum, revealing a room filled with Aurelian nobles. At the center stood Chancellor Vorix, one of the most powerful figures in the empire. His long silver robe and glowing eyes made him look almost ghostly. Next to him stood Kavar, his expression full of rage but controlled. Ethan folded his arms. "I'm guessing this isn't a celebration for my victory." Vorix stepped forward. "Captain Ethan Voss, the High Council has concerns about your presence in these trials." Ethan smirked. "Let me guess. The concern is that I'm winning." Kavar growled but said nothing. Vorix continued. "These trials are meant to determine the most worthy suitor for Princess Tyra. And yet, a human, a species barely recognized as advanced, is now a finalist." His glowing eyes narrowed. "You are an anomaly, a disruption." Ethan's smirk faded. So that's it. They don't just want me out. They think I don't belong at all. He exhaled. Let me guess. You're going to order me to leave. Vorek's expression remained unreadable. You misunderstand, Captain. You have passed the trials so far. You are now a political problem. Ethan frowned. Political problem. Kavar finally spoke, his voice like a blade. If you continue in these trials, you will create division in the Empire. Many nobles will never accept a human as the princess's chosen one. You are making enemies you cannot even see. Ethan glanced at the surrounding nobles. Some looked at him with disgust. Others looked at him with fear. That was when he realized something. It wasn't just that they hated humans. They were afraid of him. Afraid of what it meant if a human could stand equal to their greatest warriors. Afraid of what it meant for the future. Ethan took a deep breath. I'm not quitting. Vorek's eyes darkened. Then you may not live to see the end of the trials. The message was clear. This wasn't just a competition anymore. It was a battlefield. The Shadowlands stretched endlessly before Ethan, a barren wasteland of jagged rocks and swirling dust storms. The air was thick with tension, and the only sound was the distant howl of the wind. Somewhere in this desolate land, the Varthak was waiting. Ethan gripped his combat knife tightly. He had been given a basic energy rifle, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. If the Varthak was as deadly as they claimed, brute force wouldn't work. He needed to be smart. Far behind him, the other contenders spread out, each hunting the beast in their own way. Kavar was among them, but Ethan knew his true prey wasn't the monster. It was Ethan himself. This wasn't just a hunt. It was an assassination. Ethan crouched low, scanning the area. His military training kicked in. Look for patterns. Watch for movement. Stay ahead. He spotted deep claw marks on the rocks. Fresh. The beast was close. A sudden roar shattered the silence. Ethan spun around just in time to see the Varthak emerge from the dust. It was massive, easily 3 times his size, with armored scales and glowing red eyes that locked onto him like a predator spotting weak prey. But Ethan wasn't weak. The beast charged. Ethan dived to the side as razor-sharp claws tore into the ground where he had just stood. He rolled to his feet and fired his rifle. The energy blast hit the beast's hide, but barely left a mark. Damn, its armor was even stronger than he thought. The Varthak roared again and lunged. Ethan barely managed to dodge, feeling the wind from its claws brush past him. He needed a new strategy. Fast. Then he saw it. A narrow ravine in the distance, with sharp rocks lining the bottom. If he could lure the beast there, he might stand a chance. Ethan sprinted toward the ravine. The Varthak followed, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground. Just a little closer. Suddenly, a blast of energy hit the ground near his feet. Ethan cursed and dived behind a rock. He looked up to see Kavar standing on a ridge above him, rifle aimed and ready. I told you, human, Kavar sneered. You won't leave here alive. Ethan growled. 2 enemies at once. Great. The Varthak turned, now spotting Kavar. The alien noble smirked. Come then, beast. I'll end this properly. Kavar fired, but the Varthak moved too fast. Before he could react, the creature lunged at him, claws slashing. Kavar barely managed to dodge, but the beast was relentless. Ethan saw his chance. While the Varthak was distracted, he sprinted up the ridge. Kavar turned, eyes widening. What are you? Ethan tackled him. Both of them tumbled off the ridge, straight toward the ravine below, and toward the waiting beast. The second trial was about to begin. The grand arena was now a massive battleground, filled with towering stone pillars and shifting platforms. The challenge was simple: defeat your opponent and prove your strength. Ethan Voss stood at the edge, stretching his arms and rolling his shoulders. He wasn't a bodybuilder, nor was he enhanced like many of the alien warriors. But he had something they didn't: experience, strategy, and the will to survive. The announcer's voice boomed across the stadium. The next trial is the test of strength. Each suitor must battle an opponent. Victory is earned by skill, not just brute force. The crowd cheered as names flashed across the floating energy screens. The competitors were being matched at random. Ethan squinted up at the screen. His opponent's name appeared. Lord Kavar. Ethan sighed. Of course. Across the battlefield, Kavar grinned. His forearms flexed, each muscle rippling with power. This was no accident. Kavar had rigged the match, and he intended to crush the human in front of everyone. Zira sat in the royal balcony, her expression unreadable. Ethan could feel her gaze on him. She knows Kavar wants me gone. But will she stop it? The announcer gave the signal. The fight began. Kavar charged like a beast, covering the ground between them in seconds. He swung with terrifying speed, his fists crashing toward Ethan like boulders. Ethan dodged. Barely. The second punch came from another arm. Ethan ducked. A third punch followed, then a fourth. Each strike was powerful enough to break bones, but Ethan wasn't planning to take any of them head-on. He wasn't stronger than Kavar, but he was faster. Ethan weaved between the attacks, analyzing his opponent. Kavar relied on raw power. Throwing wide swings meant to overpower. But wide swings also meant openings. Ethan waited for his moment. Kavar roared, lifting a massive stone slab from the ground and hurling it at Ethan. Ethan reacted instantly. Instead of dodging backward, he ran toward Kavar, using the incoming stone as cover. At the last second, he slid under it and came up with a powerful elbow to Kavar's ribs. The impact barely made the alien noble flinch, but it stunned him for a second, and that was all Ethan needed. He jumped, grabbing one of Kavar's arms and twisting it behind him. With a sharp kick to the back of the knee, Kavar stumbled forward. Ethan followed with a hard strike to the back of his head. Kavar fell to one knee, growling. The crowd gasped. The human had brought a four-armed warlord to his knees. Kavar roared in fury, ready to tear Ethan apart. Enough. Princess Xyra's voice echoed through the arena. The trial was over. Ethan stepped back, breathing hard. He hadn't just survived. He had won.